24.
3 years later, Claire became a well-known designer overseas. Because she had to participate in a very important show in the States, she had to return with her 3-year-old son. At that time, Carter's Vanderbilt holdings had swallowed up the Sinclair family's business due to Theodore's death and became more powerful. However, they still encountered a strong opponent. No one could tell the true identity of the man named Alexander Windsor, but there were rumors that Alexander Windsor was connected to the Windsor family from 27 years ago. His strength seemed unfathomable, and the company behind him was terrifyingly powerful, able to go head-to-head with Vanderbilt Holdings, which was already an industry legend. And it wasn't a lose-lose situation, but one-sided suppression. Vanderbilt Holdings was on the verge of collapse. Unexpectedly, the Windsor Group, which was about to win, stopped any action to suppress Vanderbilt Holdings, and Alexander Windsor disappeared without a trace. Carter then took this opportunity to slowly restore Vanderbilt Holdings. This time, it took a full 5 years to restore Vanderbilt Holdings to its former heyday. No one had ever seen Alexander Windsor, nor did they know his true identity or why he was suppressing Vanderbilt Holdings so much. All anyone knew was that there had been no news of Alexander Windsor since that day. People only remembered that at that time, no company dared to compete with the Windsor Group. And the person in charge of the Windsor Group was even more of a legend. I suddenly came to my senses. The two men in front of me fell into silence, but I could clearly feel the tension. Carter was filled with a strong sense of hostility, but Alexander Windsor, seemed oblivious to Carter's poisonous gaze. His expression was still very natural, and he even raised the corners of his lips in a slight smile, as if facing a good friend, without any tension at all. He leisurely reached out his hand, gently twisted a strand of my hair with his fingertips, and laughed. "Nothing. Just came to take back what belongs to me." "What do you mean?" Carter glanced evasively, then looked straight at me unwillingly. "These are all my family's things." "Heh." Alexander Windsor narrowed his eyes slightly. "Mr. Vanderbilt, why are you playing dumb with me? I'm sure your father has already told you everything." "So what?" Carter slammed his desk hard. "That was all earned by my family through strength." "Strength? What strength?" Alexander Windsor leaned closer to my hair and laughed softly, as if he had heard a funny joke. "In that case, it makes sense for me to take my things back on my own merit," Alexander Windsor said, pulling me away. "Mr. Vanderbilt, this will be the last day I hear anyone call you that."
25.
Standing next to me at the foot of the Vanderbilt Holdings building, Alexander didn't say a word. I didn't disturb him, but just stood there with him in silence. Alexander collected his thoughts and suddenly looked down at me. I felt uncomfortable under his gaze. What's wrong?" Alexander blinked and suddenly laughed out loud. He held me in his arms, bent down slightly, and rested his head on my shoulder. I was about to reach out to push him away when Alexander grabbed my hand and said, "Don't move. Let me lean on you for a moment. I'll be back soon." The strange thing is, after hearing him say that, I really didn't move anymore. Warm breath brushed my skin, but I felt that spot was burning hot and my whole body felt warm. I wasn't used to it, so I could only pat him on the back. Are you okay?" Alexander looked up and ruffled my hair. "Clary is concerned about me." I thought about it. Carter is the male protagonist, the child of destiny. Alexander would be considered a standard villain in the plot. If it relies on luck, he might not be able to defeat Carter. So I nodded honestly. Yeah. Alexander heard this and, for some reason, couldn't help laughing. He buried his head in my shoulder and laughed muffledly. I went to push him. Hey, how come you're... Alexander didn't put any strength into holding me, so I pushed him away easily. He hooked my chin and I felt a little weird, like a puppy being teased. Clary is so stingy. Alexander's tone seemed to carry a hint of complaint and grievance, which made me feel a little guilty and wonder if I was too harsh just now. Alexander didn't dwell on this topic. He took my hand, opened the passenger door, and nudged me in. He then returned to the driver's seat. It's getting late. Time for dinner. Fasten your seatbelt. Oh. I fastened my seatbelt obediently. Alexander saw I was seated properly and started the car. When we arrived at a restaurant, Alexander took me to a private room, asked me to order first, and then went out for a while. Although I felt a little strange, I still ordered the food and waited for him. Alexander returned shortly after. I quickly handed him the menu. I ordered a few dishes. I wonder if you like them. Take a look. Alexander took the menu and handed it to the waiter without even looking at it. I'll like anything you ordered. This is a bit strange. I always feel like something isn't right, but I can't tell what exactly is wrong, so I can only put it aside. What are you thinking about? Alexander interrupted my thoughts. Ouch. I frowned and said with some regret. Actually, I really think Carter's ring was quite nice. I should have not returned it to him earlier. Tap. I looked over and saw Alexander put a burgundy velvet box on the table and open it for me. There was a ring inside. The diamond on the ring was finely carved into the shape of a crown, sparkling brightly under the crystal chandelier above. It was very beautiful. Alexander pursed his lips and looked at me. Which is better, Carter's or mine? The young man in front of me suddenly became serious, so serious that I was a little scared. What's wrong? Alexander took a deep breath and repeated, Whose looks better, his or mine, huh? I didn't dare look him in the eye, avoided his question, and asked him cautiously, What do you mean? Ahem. Alexander, who had been so tough just now, became a little uncomfortable when I asked him this. He coughed to cover it up and opened his lips hesitantly. It's... I felt myself getting nervous for no reason, but seeing his expression, I started to smile. Yours looks better. Alexander was stunned when he heard that. It took him a few seconds to react. He raised the corners of his lips and smiled with me. His peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly, sparkling as if filled with dazzling stars. I put my hands in front of me, feeling the powerful beating of my heart in my chest, and suddenly realized. This time, the storyline with other people was completely cut off. I held out my hand. Alexander took it, interlocking our fingers. I smiled at him and looked into his eyes, which reflected my shadow. Because my story has just begun.